Right. I think we are recording. Are we recording, Lisa? You can hear me?
We are, you are a go.
Right. Great. Well,
Brilliant.
welcome.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. And welcome to a good transition from children to adult health services. Now, let's make it happen, shall we? Let's make it a good experience. So I'm Gail Bedding. I am a parent carer myself. I have a young man who is 16. So we are just starting, well, have been starting for a while, good old transition. So we are learning as we're going, and we are hoping that what we're providing today is a really good source of information for you to help your transition go as smoothly as hopefully mine will be. I do have lots of experience in disability, and I've been working in the Parent Carer Forum world for many years now. I'm an expert parent programme trainer with CDC, and I sit on the Health Education England Patient Advisory Forum as a lay member. And I'm a trustee for Challengers, which I'm sure many of you know Challengers, and also just become a trustee for Fitzroy, which is adult residential and supported living. So that's my way into the adult world in my knowledge, really. And I'm just going to introduce you now to Grainne.
Oh, thank you, Gail. Wow, you are so busy, and it's always a pleasure to dovetail and to present workshops with you. Gail and I work a lot together, delivering this expert parent program. It is not about parenting, absolutely. It's trying to help parent carers understand how to navigate the health system and get the best possible outcomes for their children with special education needs and disability. Like Gail, I'm a parent carer as well, and my daughter is 16, again, going through transition. But you'll hear as we go through today's workshop that our children are very, very different and need very different things. So that is the key. The key is understanding that, really. So as well as being an expert parent trainer, because the expert parent program workshops are really, really powerful and very, very empowering for families, I am also an appointed governor for children and young people at a NHS provider trust where I live, and that's a really, really fantastic role to have as a governor, and to work alongside professionals and from their point of view, as well as from families' point of view and patients, as we're called in the NHS. Like Gail, I've also spent a long time in parent carer land, leading West Sussex Parent Carer Forum and regionally, and working a lot on the health agenda locally. So no more about us. We're basically trying to build confidence that we kind of know a little bit of what we're talking about, and we're experiencing it ourselves. And we thought we'd start at the very beginning by asking each other honestly how we're feeling. There's our lovely children and pictures of us, me and Emily on the right, Gail on the left. So Gail, how are you feeling about transition?
I'm a bit scared, I guess, really. There's so much to learn. It's very, very different. But what I am finding out is, as I'm doing this program of work now, is that I'm learning as I'm going, and I feel really empowered that I'm gathering knowledge to make this transition as the best it can be for Fergus and for me as a mum, and for the family as well. So I think it's going to be okay. How about you?
Thank you. Yeah, much the same. Gosh, you know, I have two children, 18-year-old, he's left home at university, and Emily's very, very different to his journey in life. And it is quite scary to think of my little baby, and she's definitely not, is growing up and becoming an adult. And you have to celebrate that, but I'm also quite nervous about that future. And like yourself, have started, absolutely, I think we've both done it, some good holistic person-centered planning, which is a great place to start. You know, you can't just think of things in isolation, you have to think of everything together. And having dabbled at a few things and done some things, I can see that it's probably going to be okay. I think what we have to remember as parents is that we've never done this before. This is the first time we've ever done it, but lots of health professionals do this often. They see lots and lots of children like our children, lots of young people like our young people, and we just see one of them. So we should take confidence in that. Okay, so what we're talking about today is just transition for health from children's to adults services. Why on earth are we talking about transition from health services? It's just quite obvious, really. Young people need to be cared for in an appropriate way and in an appropriate place. There comes a time and a point where it's not appropriate for them to be on children's wards. They need to be treated like adults and be on adult wards, treated with respect in that way. But the particular young people that we are focusing on are children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities. They will need support to become independent adults, whatever independence looks like for them. And we are thinking about that whole range of need for children who've got special education needs and disability. So every single one of them will need different levels of support. Person-centered care is key to all of this, shared decision making. Sorry, Gail, I cut into you.
No, don't worry. I was just going to say actually exactly that. Emily's needs and requirements for going into transition into adulthood is completely different to Fergus's. And I think that's what we're trying to say here, is that every child is very, very different and will need different sorts of support. And thinking of them in a very person-centered way is really key to what is going to happen and needs to happen for our children to get that best move into adulthood, basically. One size doesn't fit all.
Absolutely. And I think in children's world, we're very much their primary carers, and we know what's best for them. And of course, we include them in decision making, but they're still, as children, quite done unto. Whereas if you grow into the adult world and you move into adult world, you're really thinking about the concept of shared decision making, where you're involving your young person at the very, very heart. They need to know what their options are. This lovely diagram on the right-hand side of the slide, what are the pros and cons of each option available to them? Who's going to support them to make the right decision? It's really key that we help our young people understand those three questions and have them answered in a way that they understand and feel included. And then it's all about them.
It is. And also, what we need to bear in mind is that, yes, we're looking at health, the two of us today, but actually a part of the preparing for adulthood work, and obviously this conference, which is a fantastic opportunity for all of us to look at different areas, is that it's all interrelated: employment, independent living, relationships, friends, the community, and of course health. Everything it needs to work together. So the more you can listen and the more you can actually attend different sessions of this conference, the better, because it all has to interlink and to be interdependent for our children, basically.
Absolutely. You can't have good health without having a good and a happy place to live, or relationships and friendships. It's not very good for your mental health at all.
Absolutely not. So let's make it a good health transition, shall we? So there are going to be lots of resources available. So this will be available at the end. We'll give you more details as we're going through, but we will also refer to some of these resources as we go through our session today. But we really want to make this good health transition a really smooth process, and it needs to be that uninterrupted care from where we are now in children's services, moving through into adult services. And we don't want that cliff edge that so many people talk about. We want that smooth transition, and it can be done. And that's why we need to think about this so early, really.
So we mean by, if you have good epilepsy care in children's services, that it would be seamless. There wouldn't be a gap until someone from the adult epilepsy care world picked you up. Your most important care needs be uninterrupted, and you'd have that nice continuity of care.
And you need to start planning that now and just asking those questions. And we are lucky in Surrey. I live on the Surrey-Hampshire borders, but Fergus's care is actually at the Royal Surrey, and there is a really good learning disability nurse there at the moment, Vicky. And if you do attend that hospital, then do make contact. And I know that Claire, I think her name is Claire, is the adult one. So again, get to know them, get to know Vicky, get to know Claire, and then you'll have this smooth transition, because they're there to help you with these services. And the other hospitals within Surrey as well, I believe they also have learning disability nurses. So start looking into those areas.
And we're going to talk about that and how you get in touch with those learning disability nurses and those key places to facilitate that relationship a bit later on in the presentation. So good health transitions. We hope you would have a warm welcome to the new service that looked after you. You don't have to repeat the history, and you don't have to continuously go over what happened to you from when you were born, which of course is not interesting to young people at all. So that's what we hope. We hope that it will be planned. People will know that you are coming to the adult service. We think that good health transitions should be a place where it's supportive, where there's lots of joy working, and you're given stand what choices they need to make. Okay, so as young people become adults, they will become more autonomous in their life decisions. The law does significantly change as children reach 16. We need to be aware of that as parents and carers. And the reason transition should take a little bit longer is because our vulnerable young people will need a little bit more time to do that. And I think this lovely report, From the Pond to the Sea, was quite a pivotal report. It was commissioned by the CQC in 2014, but it really highlighted to lots of professionals where they could do that better, where they could really support vulnerable young people. And all young people are vulnerable. It's quite a difficult growing up to be an adult. It's not easy for anybody. But I think the professional world really took on board what they could do to make it a smooth process with a warm welcome and to be much more supportive for young people.
Absolutely. And it needs to be a gradual process. You have to remember that this should really start at the age of 14. Now, don't panic. If you haven't started it and your children have gone beyond 14, don't panic. It's okay. It's not going to be the end of the world. Because actually, as you're moving forward, and if your child has an education healthcare plan, you will have your annual review, and you can start discussing this whole transition at your annual review, which is, it's obviously a statutory meeting. It has to happen once a year. It's law, but we can start talking and discussing the health side of that EHCP at these meetings. So when they are 14, you can start that discussion. Make sure you're perhaps trying to ask the right people to come to the meetings. Not always easy to do that, I know. We've both been there, but I do insist now for my son, for Fergus, that actually, if I'm going to have our annual review, that I have somebody from health there, I have somebody from social care, and obviously the school is holding the meeting anyway. And in this new world, this new COVID world, there is no excuse for that not to happen, really, because we're not travelling to and from meetings anymore. We're sitting around a Zoom screen or whatever it might be, and therefore it can be a lot easier for people to attend meetings. So it's worth really trying to make sure that you get the right people sitting around the table in your Zoom conversation or whatever it might be, GoTo or Teams.
And Gail, if health professionals can't physically be there in the meeting, they can write a good report. They can give some good assessment of need, and transition we should start thinking about it from when children are 14 or in year 9, but it doesn't mean that it's going to happen immediately in the health world, because sometimes that won't happen until children are 17 or 18 or 19 or older. But we need that length of time for us to start thinking about it and to start planning, and also for our young people to get used to the idea that we won't always be speaking on their behalf. And for children that are non-verbal and that don't speak or that don't want to interact with professionals, to make sure that we gather a way in which professionals know about them, understand them, and that they can have their voice heard best.
And while you're starting to plan that, just start thinking, who helps your young person? Who are the health professionals that are involved with your young person? Certainly for me and for Fergus, we have a lot of health professionals. We have OTs, physios, epilepsy nurses, we have a paediatric consultant. In different places, we're up to Great Ormond Street, we're up to the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital. So just start thinking about who the health professionals are and what will happen to those health professionals as you move towards adult services. Where will the crossover be? Who will start taking over the plans of your child? And think.
So I'm in a slightly different position in that I don't have very many health professionals, but my daughter has significant needs. So we didn't have a paediatrician from when she was 11 years old. We moved back to a GP, and we talk more about the GP a bit later on. But I don't have a whole raft of very complicated network of health support around my daughter. But she does have at school significant input from allied health professional therapies, so physiotherapy, speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, and those are the people that are involved with her. But also think about the optician, think about the dentist, all around the periphery of people that keep your child and your young person healthy and well. Who's involved with their life?
And then thinking about as well your young person's needs. So they're in children's services at the moment. They're going into adult world. Are their needs going to be the same? Will they be in education? Will they not be in education? You know, what do they actually need to be thinking about? And therefore, the health needs might be very different.
Because a lot of health needs delivered around children that are in education, around things that support their education and training. They're not around keeping them physically well. So the emphasis will change. So you need to think about their needs, but also think about wider needs. It's great if you have a professional identified to support those needs, but lots of children have quite low-level peripheral anxiety and worries. You don't necessarily need a health professional because you're managing that really well at home. But I would think really holistically about what the needs of your young person might be. What is it that they will need in place to keep them well and happy?
Absolutely. And part of that is also thinking about the language you're using and what language will enable them to get a good transition, what language perhaps might be a barrier. So you just need to start thinking about what the right language is that you need to get what you want as well. For example, MenCap use the phrase learning disability, and that actually means reduced intellectual ability and difficulty with everyday activities. So that's socializing, managing money, but it's learning when to use that language. For example, Together for Short Lives, they use two different phrases. There's life-threatening conditions, and that means for those children, young people, anybody, it's something that possibly could be cured. So something like cancer, for example. But life-limiting conditions are those which there is no cure, where children are not usually expected to live into adulthood. Now, we talk about these things. We were told that Fergus would never make his teens. He's now a very healthy 16-year-old, but he's very healthy because of the fantastic health input that's been put into his life during children's services. But it is working out what the right language to use is. Is Fergus stable or unstable? Is he unpredictable? Fluctuating conditions? Has he got complex health needs, high health needs? And these are kind of words that you need to start thinking about, how you're going to explain to a new professional that doesn't know Fergus, for example, or your young person, how you're going to explain to them about your child. You will have a 10-minute appointment, maybe 15 if you're lucky. And in that short period of time, you will need to explain over and beyond the notes they've got piled up on their desks, what your child is like.
And I think it's not just about focusing on that appointment, it's about being taken seriously when your child has something that's not very visible. And if your child might have lots of anxiety, which might be related to their autism or not related to autism, for example, or they might have a condition like unpredictable and unstable epilepsy, it's powerful to think those those adjectives to describe their medical condition, to make sure that they're being taken seriously and having the right referral to a specialist point that can help them.
Absolutely. And you need to remember that this person, who you might not see very often, is probably the most important part of your whole transition period. You need to think about who your GP is, your relationship with your GP, and think about how you can start that if you already haven't started. They are key to transition. As you move into adult services, you will, if you were lucky enough to have a paediatric consultant, which we do at the moment, that paediatric consultant will go. The GP will be our key to all referrals, all health requirements, and it's worth deciding now and thinking about how you can start that relationship. And there's one really good way to do that, which Grainne is going to talk about now.
Absolutely. So it's part of we've only done this once, but there's lots of professionals in the NHS who've done this many, many, many times. And there's a really powerful streams of work to support people with learning disabilities and autism. And one really powerful thing that they've put in place is an annual health check for people with learning disabilities, which will happen in your GP surgery, maybe with a nurse in conjunction with a GP, but it's an yearly conversation that your young person with a learning disability, with or without you, can be having from when they're 14 years old onwards up to their 99, all things around their health. It's not just about their height and their weight. It's a really holistic MOT, as if we want for a better word, to think about their physical health as well as their mental well-being. And that will happen in your GP surgery. So it's really important that not only is your GP surgery a place for referrals to other services, but that your GP surgery knows your young person well and understands their needs when they're well and when they're not well. And it's a central point for information as well.
Absolutely.
So,
sorry, Grainne.
So we talk about another key point that we don't appreciate is that information is not joined up very well. The NHS might feel like a big, happy, single family, but actually it's quite complicated and there's lots of different organisations and we are often the key to information. So there are some steps that we could take now as our young people go through transition to make sure that information is joined up and people know the right things about us, because we're going to start using the right language to describe our young person and our condition. So drawing up information in the NHS as much as you can. Does your GP know that your young person has a learning disability or have autism? Make sure that they're on the register. Make sure that they're being invited for a learning disability health check, if that's appropriate. Have you registered yourself as a carer? Are your other children registered as young carers if they want, because it's appropriate that people know about how much caring is happening at home.
If you register as a carer and your other children are as well, you get things like flu jabs. You become a priority, and it'll be on your records, and they'll be able to see, oh, she's a carer. Let's give her a priority appointment, or let's make sure she gets a flu jab. So that's another good reason for things like making sure that they know that you are a carer.
So Gail, in Surrey, you access direct payments. It's a small grant for carers through your GP, don't you? Do you want to tell people about that?
That's right, yeah. So I've been to my GP and said that I am a carer. He knows I'm a carer. He's well aware of my situation. And he is now filling out the paperwork for me to have a direct payment sent to me. And I think in Surrey, it used to be up to £500, but I think it's up to £300 now. And that £300 can be spent to look after you. It can be on gym membership, it can be on a spa day, it can be going out for a nice meal, but it's something for you as a carer, and that it's they recognizing that you need something a bit extra. I think you have to produce a receipt for all what you spend, but it is there. Ask your GP about it, because it is definitely available.
So the NHS of all organisations is really makes sure that people have consent to share information, to talk about you, and that's that right to privacy and that right to consent is really, really strong throughout the NHS. So it's really important that you make sure people have in writing consent that they are allowed to talk to each other and just describe your young person and talk about your young person and plan for them. What we may not appreciate as well is that all of us have a digital record within the NHS. They're called summary care records, and you can, through your GP surgery, have a right ask to access your summary care record and to add additional information, enhanced summary care record information, so that in the unlikely and unfortunate event that your young person might go to A&E, they will be able to access the summary care record. And in the enhanced section, you might write something about their sensory sensitivities, for example, and they would automatically see, to support your young person better in A&E, that they might need to behave in a certain way, or that you're non-verbal. So lots of key information can be put in the enhanced summary care record. Make sure you access it, and you do that through your GP surgery. But it's very powerful. So that whole program of work that's happening in the NHS for people with learning disabilities and autism is really quite exciting. And I think we just want to give you some comfort that lots of people are working behind the scenes to improve their training and support and behaviour around people with learning disabilities and autism. And hopefully it's just going to get better. And on the right, there's a long list of things. The summary care records is one of the things that hopefully are going to be joined up better. And annual health checks for people with learning disabilities are really important things. So ask for one. They can happen when children are 14. It will be down to the peculiarity of your GP surgery, how they happen. My GP surgery didn't think they were important for people until they were 18, and they only happened once a year in November. But with conversations with my GP, I managed to come to a joint agreement that actually it would be a really good process to support my daughter, because she needed lots of practice to talk about health issues and with health professionals. So those annual health checks were initiated earlier than the GP surgery anticipated. But it's your right to ask for one. It's your right for a young person to have one. And they're a really, really good process.
And this is just a list to show you that actually health are doing a lot behind the scenes, stuff that you probably wouldn't know about, but feel better about seeing this list, because it's really important.
Absolutely. And there's lots of effort put into reasonable adjustments, which is really, really powerful.
Absolutely.
So what do we have to do, Gail, for our young people?
Well,
we have to help them.
Sorry, a bit of overlap there. We're not used to this whole Zoom thing without people around us. but their voice, your children's voice is really important. And even if they don't have a voice, like my little Fergus does not have a voice, I can speak for him. I know what he likes, I know what he wants, I know about his condition. Whereas it's very different for Grainne, because Emily can talk, can't she, Grainne?
She can, but she needs lots of practice and preparation. You can't just spring things on her. So we need to think about, in particular, things that we might want to talk about or discuss and practice them. So, and that just takes time, I think. So involve and include our young people's voice from the earliest possible moment that can happen. Help them understand what they need to be well. My daughter was at last getting the concept behind healthy eating and exercise, and she needs that to keep well and to be happy. But it's a long journey, and there's lots of really good places that if that doesn't happen at school, and often young people don't want to listen to their mum and dad, this lovely Bernardo's run a fantastic group all about helping young people be better advocates for themselves. The Moving Forward program that they run is all about understanding your health and how and your health is also tied up with danger and safety, road safety and money safety and internet safety. So find those places to help them understand themselves and their condition.
But it's also
help professionals to get to know them when they're well.
Yes, that's right. But also it's also thinking about as well about becoming their former carer. You know, for example, Fergus can't talk, and therefore the health professionals have to listen to me. And whether I want to obtain legal deputyship or not will depend on whether they're looking at his best interests or not. I would like to believe that all the health services are looking at his best interests, and therefore obtaining legal deputyship might not be appropriate for us, because actually he will be looked at in the right way. But it is worth you thinking about why you would need some sort of legal entitlement to talk for your young person. So it's worth discussing and looking into in more detail.
And that best interest decisions, my daughter will, when she's asked directly, she will just say, well, I'd like you to talk to my mum, or I'd like you to talk to my dad, and that's powerful enough. Okay, so often it's about sharing the right information and having the right plan. And you will have a feeling about that from understanding who's involved and what the needs of your child are, that very first conversation. And they're very powerful ways in which we can share the voice of young people, even when they don't have a verbal voice or they don't want to talk about themselves. So one-page profiles are really powerful, hospital passports, even if your children have no intention of going to hospital, they might end up there, and a hospital passport, something that's ready, filled in, will be really, really powerful. Gail, do you have one of those filled in already?
I did have one, yeah. I couldn't find it before, but I've got a hospital passport which the Royal Surrey given to me, and basically it stays with Fergus all the time. So if he suddenly is rushed into hospital, it's there in his basket, in his bag. And also the hospital themselves also have hospital passport on their records. So it's worth asking which hospital you're nearest to and filling out that information. It's really useful for them to have, because you might not be there to talk for them, and therefore that information is all in one place, and it's there for them to know exactly how to handle your child.
Absolutely. And it's about keeping it updated. Don't worry if you lose it, you can just access a new one online and we'll give you all the resources afterwards. And these days, it's a very digital world. It's brilliant. There's lots of really powerful digital tools like Rick's Wikis that young people can do themselves. But I noticed that the Charity for Children with Life-Limiting Conditions, Together for Short Lives, has a really powerful digital tool as well. It's called My Care. So just that might be a really, really helpful thing to put everything in one place and just to show people the screen, or to share the link with people so people can access it on iPads or whatever computers that they've got. We think it's really also important to share our young people's strengths and achievements and our hopes for the future and goals, quite aspirational. And people should know about that as well. We thought it was helpful to add if there was a history of unplanned admissions. If young people need to be at A&E, absolutely, that is completely the right place for them to be, and that's the place where they're going to get the right care. But for some young people, they have a history of just turning up at A&E because, and that might be because they don't have a very good relationship with their GP, or they don't understand there's some other very, very good supportive services out there. That A&E is not necessarily the right place for them. And if we understood that, we would support them better to be in the right place, to get the right care that they needed.
Absolutely. And certainly for us, Fergus is prone to seizures. I think twice now about rushing into A&E, because I know I'm going to be in there for at least 4 hours and then go on to a ward. And actually the best thing for him to be is be at home. So it's just thinking about how you don't necessarily need to rush into hospital at the first sign that there's something wrong. Just think about it before you do make that decision, because it's a long evening if you're there for 4 or 5 hours, and a long night too. So the other thing to think about, which is really important, is certainly in my life, is that because Fergus wasn't possibly going to be around still, we have got lots of care plans in place for him, advanced care plans, so that if he does go downhill very quickly, what do we want to happen in hospital? Do we want to resuscitate him? Do we not want to resuscitate him? You know, what are the best interest decisions for him? And what's really important here is that then it's not a nice thing to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about end of life and what's going to happen in those latter days, weeks, months, but actually to do that plan when your young person is in a happy, good, healthy state, because you can think in a much clearer way. So do think about putting plans in place. And a parallel planning is when you have a good plan and a bad plan. So this is what happens if he's healthy, this is what happens if he's not healthy. And you have two sets of plans, and it's good to put those in your hospital notes as well, so that the doctors and nurses know what your thoughts are. And you can change your mind. You know, you might put actually DNRs straight away, do not resuscitate, but actually when it comes to it, you don't want that to happen. You want them to resuscitate. And so you are able to change your mind. It's not set in stone, but it's something really worth thinking about before they become ill, if they're going to go down that way.
That's good to know, Gail. And for young people that have quite serious suicidal ideation, safety plans. Put something in place so that they know what's going to happen and strategies that will support and help them, and if they turn, other health professionals can support them with that as well. We are living very strange times, and COVID will be with us for a while, and it's meant that people have to behave also in different ways, and we can't necessarily be with our young people if they were to ever go to hospital. So the NHS has this lovely COVID-19 grab and go form. And if young people are admitted to hospital, it is just that. It's just a sheet of paper that would go with them. It's really simple. I'm happy to talk. Just very, very basic. How I might know if I'm in pain. It's a really, really fundamentally important thing. And for my young person, they're withdrawn, they get angry, they're confused. They may not tell you what to, for example. So fill it in now.
Yes, absolutely. Plan ahead. That's what we say, plan ahead. So what does a healthy life look like as an adult? What are you actually aiming for? And this is where you need to start thinking about what you want for the next stage and what they want for themselves. You know, start talking to them.
Okay. So some of the confusion, I suppose, is that suddenly it's new language all over again. And we've been very much supported around conversations about reaching outcomes, good outcomes, joint outcomes. But in health, they talk about shared decision-making much, much more. And shared decision-making is at the heart of person-centered care. You know, person-centered care is not what's the matter with you, what's wrong with you. It's what matters to you, what's important to you, and how can we treat you and help you achieve what matters to you. Achieving goals and outcomes by jointly coming together with the young person and with you as carers and whoever's involved in their health team. Okay. So shared decision-making could be around being pain-free, maintaining your vision, reducing your anxiety, my anxiety, for example. But all these outcomes enable the young person to be included in those 4 preparing for adulthood strands, you know, to be involved in their community, to have meaningful activities, to have good health, and to be as independent as possible.
Wonderful. That's what we want for our children, isn't it, Grainne? Absolutely. And there is a lot of information out there for you. There really is. And do you want to talk about the Ready, Steady, Go, Grainne?
Absolutely. I mean, and I think, you know, we only have done this once. We haven't done it before, but health professionals have done it many, many times. They will, if you use the right language and it's appropriate, if your young person does need a plan, there are lots of tried and tested templates, such as Ready, Steady, Go, which is developed by Southampton Children's Hospital. And the little logo is down on the side. And they're just some really nice tools and pointers and questions that you can follow through and answer with your young person. Or, for example, 10 Steps to Transition, which Alder Hey Hospital in Liverpool have developed alongside Ready, Steady, Go. So there's templates. People don't, and it's helpful for professionals because they don't forget about things and everyone is using the same format.
Absolutely. And there's so much information specific to your child's condition. And there's 2 examples here, the Muscular Dystrophy UK, Down Syndrome Association, the Fragile X Society, and Together for Short Lives also have lots of information about particular specific conditions. So there's so much information out there. Just look for it and it's there for you. Don't feel as though there's nothing there.
Absolutely. So if you're a young person you know has a diagnosis, Duchenne's, anything, go to the specific place that gives the right type of information for your young person. There will be resources appropriate for a young person to use as well, and that will help you involve them in conversations, share decision making about their care. And really nice book produced by Together for Short Lives, which is the charity for children with life-limiting conditions, called Stepping Up, which is a really nice booklet to read through.
Absolutely.
And the Royal Colleges produce loads and loads of guidance that's really helpful, really user-friendly, not all professional facing all the time, and a really helpful document for you to read and to take comfort from. So the Royal College of Nursing, for example, or Royal College of Psychiatrists has a fantastic document which talks about children that are having active services, therapeutic services from child and adolescent mental health services moving into adult mental health services, what that continuity of care should look like. There should not be any gaps, and documents like that will support you. Nice guidance, things like that.
Yeah.
CQC guidance.
Lots out there. But what you also need to know is that there are lots of laws and levers for your children. So you have rights. So there are lots of laws down here. We've written a few down here, but there is a law around making sure that your children are treated the same way as all children and young adults. So Mental Capacity Act, Deprivation of Liberty of Safeguards, Care Act, Local Authority Adult Disability Registers, the Transforming Care Programme, which again, Grainne, you're really involved with that, and that's a really important piece of work. So there's an awful lot of information out there giving you the knowledge that your child has a need, but therefore has a right to that need.
So I suppose the most important one is the Equality Act and the reasonable adjustments that people would make if they knew that your young person had a learning disability or autism. The Mental Capacity Act comes into place when children are 16, and we assume that children have, or young people have, the capability to make decisions. But please go and look it up. It's a very complicated piece of law. I think we all understand what deprivation of liberties is like, living in these strange conditions. We understand having that freedom taken away from you and what impact that has on us. The Care Act came into place in 2014, and it's really important, even if your child receives no services from social services or from education, that you have a right to having your care needs met. So think about it for you as well. We've talked about transforming care a lot, but we haven't talked about continuing care. Gail, would you like to talk us about that?
Yeah, so Fergus actually does have continuing healthcare within children's services at the moment. He reached the framework, and there is a very high framework. Your child does have to be quite severely needing health intervention. But it doesn't automatically mean that because he has it in children's services that he's going to get it in adult services. So he will have an assessment at the age of 17 years old, and they will decide whether he will then be funded in adult services by health or not. So it's a big decision. And the other way around, if you don't have it in children's services, you need to perhaps ask for it if you feel there's a need at the age of 17, and they will give you an assessment whether you've got it in children's services or not. So it's worth wondering and thinking about whether you would reach the needs of the framework. So do bear that in mind as well. You know, we won't automatically get continuing care just because we have it now. And we have a personal health budget because we have joint services with health and social care and education, of course. But again, necessarily, if he doesn't reach the needs of health in adulthood, that he will not have a personal health budget.
And personal health budgets are relatively new, aren't they, Gail? And hopefully they could be they're not just about having a nice new wheelchair and something bespoke about that. Lucy Watts is a lovely young person. She talks really passionately about using and having a personal health budget. There's lots of very complicated, they are a powerful tool and a lever that might be useful to you. They could also be there to support young people with mental health needs. Just think of them, use them.
Absolutely. So just looking at Surrey specifically here, remember the GP is really important here. And then Grainne's done a lot of work looking at the different areas within Surrey of what different places you can go for more help and support.
So if your young person has a learning disability, and this is where we get a little bit medical model, has an IQ of 70 below, they will be open to the community teams for people with learning disabilities. And in Surrey, they are big and they are vast. They have things like a speech and language therapist, an occupational therapist, nurses, psychologists and psychiatrists. So they can really support people with learning disabilities who might have challenging behaviour or not, and mental ill health as well. So those teams, you can look at the website, you can access them. They have lots of therapies, and they can actively support you. But the teams, the learning liaison nurses, the learning disability liaison nurses are available also in the 6 CCG, clinical commissioning group areas that you have in Surrey. Again, look at the website and you'll find out how to get in touch with them. And they can help you, or your young person, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you can be your own person on their own, interact with the GP service or with the optician or the dentist, for example. And they're also available and sit and work in hospitals, in the 5 acute hospitals in Surrey. And Gail, you talked about the fantastic child and adult learning disability liaison nurses. So they're available in all the acute hospitals. And if you look to those websites, you will find out the contact details and know how to meet them. But they are a lifeline. Find out about them, make contact with them. If your young person does not have an IQ below 70 and they have autism services for adults, and there are many, many of them, are done in co-production with the National Autistic Society of Surrey, and also the Autism Partnership Board in Surrey. So make yourself known to them, find out about them.
Thank you, Grainne. So there is lots of help. Do not feel that you're on your own. So here's just some final thoughts from Grainne and I.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Gail. Can you just go back to the last one?
Yeah, of course.
And don't forget that you could look at these fantastic national organisations as well. MenCap, the Challenging Behaviour Foundation, ADHD Foundation, the Wheelchair. Lots of them have helplines. Lots of them also have family networks to support families if you were living and supporting a young person, young adult with challenging behaviour, for example. So don't forget to think of national organisations as well.
So just a bit of a summary of what we've talked about. We talked about an awful lot, and there's still an awful lot we could carry on talking about. Every person, every young person, each of your children is different, and every need will be different depending on their level of support that they need, and their vulnerability, their health needs. And you need to help your young person be seen, be heard, make choices, and to participate. And that good old word of co-produce, do that with them, do that with the professionals around you. Make sure that what they want, what your young person wants, is shared with everybody, and you work together to make it happen. think about what you are actually trying to achieve moving into adult services, what they have in children's services, and in the children's world might be very different as they're moving into the adult world. Just think about how different that would be as they move through it.
You've written on here, Gail, we've written on that have a look at the clinics, the adult clinics that are available in your local area or in hospital. And for example, if your young adult needs to give blood frequently, maybe there's a better place than the adult phlebotomy clinic in a hospital, which might feel quite cold and quite clinical. Maybe that could be done in your GP surgery. So work in co-production, use the reasonable adjustment laws that are there to protect your young person and your young adult. Think of a better way to achieve the outcome that you're trying to achieve.
Absolutely.
There's lots of help and information and support, probably too much. Just please ask. Maybe start with Family Voice Surrey, find some other families like your own. Look at the condition-specific website of the diagnosis that your young person might have. There's lots of places for information.
And just think about joining it all up together. We're just talking about health, but think about independent living, employment, and the community all together. So there's lots to think about. There are lots of resources. We talked about lots of resources already today, and we have put together a little document, a little flyer of many more resources that would be helpful to you as well. And we're going to make sure that we send that through to Family Voice Surrey, and they will be able to then send that out to you I think you need to do feedback for that, and then we'll send you the resources. But also, just moving forwards, we're saying thank you for listening to us. We are going to be doing a question and answer session. Grainne and I will be there, hopefully to give you answers on things you need. And that's going to be on the 2nd of November at 4 o'clock. And I believe that this particular workshop will be aired on the Family Voice Surrey website. But also there's a private Facebook group which Family Voice run, and it's called the Parent Carer Chat and Question Group. And all these workshops will be there for you to look at in your own time and to pick up and spend time perhaps writing down things that you need to ask and look into. So thank you very much for listening to us both. Grainne, you're going to say something, weren't you?
I was just going to highlight that not all young people will need a transition plan. My daughter won't, for example, but your son Fergus will, and Gail and I, and it's important that you plan and get support, and Gail and I deliver the complex health needs and transition to adult workshop. It's part of the expert parent program workshops. So if this is you, this is your family, we'd encourage you please to come along.
Absolutely.
Please tell Family Voice Surrey, is that right, Gail?
Yeah, absolutely. They might think
Get in touch with us.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, everybody. I look forward to speaking to you in a second.
Thank you, and good luck, everybody. You'll be fine, but just try and remember those pointers.
Finish, Lisa.